Hey, everybody. Welcome back to TNTT, Truth Not Trash with Tim. Man, funny story. I made this video about an hour ago, went to review the video, and guess what? No audio. Yeah, that's what I get for being the new guy on the block, right? Anyway, um, tonight's an exciting night. We are going to finish the Constitution as written. We're going to go all the way to the seventh article, and we're going to get through it. It's going to take us, I would say, about 30 minutes total, maybe 32, with the added stuff. But you know me, I always throw in something. But first of all, I want to say I don't know. I'm going to try to get through the night um, without just harping on current events. It's going to be hard for me to do because, man, there's some craziness going on. So how I'm going to do that is um, I am going to give a brief opening statement about what's going on in the world, a little bit of history, a look at the past, a look at what I think we need to do for the future. I'll take 7 or 8 minutes, and then it'll be out of my system, and we'll finish the Constitution, and we'll get it all done within that 30-minute period. So first of all, what we got to do is get up our Constitution and get to reading. So I wrote down what I wanted to say so I don't mess it up, and I'm going to go at it. And when I get done with this, you guys can let me know what you think, and we'll learn some more about the Constitution. All right, here we go. First of all, what we're doing right now is one of the most important things we can do, and the fact that they're trying to take this away from us is a disgrace. It's pitiful. It truly is an attack on our freedoms, on our sovereignty, on our nation. For them to try and silence us. And I think what they're trying to do, and mark my words, is they're trying to silence us and get us into a corner and get us to do something we shouldn't do, right? And then they can say, see, I told you, the people on the right, that's who they are. But that's not who we are. And we won't fight until we absolutely have to. All right. So like I said, this is one of the most important things we can do. A little bit about me real quick. My name's Tim Hazlow. For those of you who are new and don't know me, I ran for Congress against a guy called Absent Rick Larson. We got 148,000 votes in this district, which was great as a Republican. That doesn't happen. I think it's happened once before where somebody in this district as a Republican got 148,000 votes. And I'm now the chairman of the Island County Republican Party. So that has no influence on what I'm doing these videos for, though, outside. Just letting you know who I am. And, I want to give them a shout out, though, and let them know that we're working hard for them. Okay, so to my statement. What in the hell is wrong with our nation? What is wrong with our nation? Little history. In late September 1787, Benjamin Franklin left Independence Hall after the signing of the Constitution. A woman in the street outside asked him, "What form of government have we?" Ben replied, "A republic." And then he continued on and said, "If you can keep it." And I'm going to repeat that part, if you can keep it. And it seems to me like we're struggling to keep it at this point in time. Fast forward to now. The terror and the enemy are no longer just overseas. We're not just battling them in other countries. The battle for the liberty and freedom of our republic has reached our home and has been trying to destroy our nation for quite some time now. Communists, globalists, socialists, and Islamic extremists have for years boasted and bragged about how they're going to take over our nation from within without ever even firing a shot. Until Trump was elected, people mostly dismissed all this as a conspiracy theory and fear-mongering, but now we can see it in real time. They're no longer trying to hide it. It's now in the open, and no longer just elites in Davos talking about New World Order and Great Reset, but it's staring us in the face like a loaded gun. The so-called squad and the extreme anti-American agenda they push, massive revisionism of our history and the teaching of woke theory to our kids, career politicians like Absent Rick and Nasty Nancy, who could not care less about us, believing they and their families will be spared from the onslaught of the socialism that they're pushing. An unfounded impeachment, a purpose, yes, I'm going to say it, a purpose-released virus to generate fear and compliance, to create a crisis so big the sheeple will beg for them to take care of us, beg for them to come to our rescue, and take whatever solution they want to give us. And believe me, I don't want the big government solution. and we'll willingly give up our freedoms. And in that process, we'll lose a lot. It'll be hard to get back. And then, of course, the obvious stealing of the current election. It seems to me that anybody with open eyes and common sense can see and feel the truth. We can just take a look at a couple of facts. Counties and big cities and swing states with more votes than the registered voters. Hundreds of thousands of ballots dropped for Biden when supposedly they were done counting for the night. And mind you, statistically unrealistic amounts of ballots. Once again, in swing states and counties. Every single glitch that happened in our election went in favor of the Democrats. I mean, if one or two of them went in favor of the Republicans, we could say, well, yeah, there's mistakes that happen. But when every single one of them goes in favor of the Democrats, yeah, there's something wrong there. Walks like a duck, talks like a duck, right? Must be a duck. Hundreds, if not thousands, of signed affidavits describing fraud from no signature verification to outright ballot creation. And we could go on with this stuff. I mean, it's really almost endless. So you see, the Democrats know that once the ballot has been removed from the signed envelope, we're talking about mail-in balloting now, there's no going back and reviewing the validity. The die is cast, and even the mostly symbolic recounts that we have are useless, as they just recount the same bad ballots over and over again. Does us no good. That's why, unless we fix this now, before Biden and Harris get a chance to solidify the disaster and bury the evidence, we'll never have another uncontested election in our nation. I do believe that. So as we know, the Democrats have been doing this for a long time, and now with mail-in balloting, they think they can do it forever and ever. As a matter of fact, the only non-peaceful transition of power we have ever had have been from the Democrats. Take 1860, for instance, when President Lincoln became president. They did not want him. They decided that they were going to start a civil war over Lincoln trying to preserve the Union. And they attacked Fort Sumter, and the Civil War started, and it went on, and lots of people died in that war. Same thing, 1864. They tried, this was the very first example of ballot fraud, mail-in ballot fraud. What they did was they went out and they voted for dead soldiers and wounded soldiers who couldn't vote for themselves. They changed ballots of other soldiers that were in the field and tried to deliver this stuff to D.C. for counting, or well, to the Congress for counting, and it got found out, and it got discovered, and it got fixed, and President Lincoln won again. And then what they do? They killed him. And then we come all the way up to 2016 when Obama, Biden, and Clinton used our own government agencies to try and influence that election, trying to blame it all on Russia. Refusing to accept Trump as the president, they spent 4 more years lying, cheating, and stealing to try and get rid of him. To now, the single most, in my opinion, the most fraudulent election in our nation's history. And once again, that's my opinion. You guys can have your own. So what do? Well, we do this. We come together, we grow our numbers, and demand without compromise that we have in-person voting on election day, not for a 1 to 2 month period of election time. We have an election day, for God's sakes. We demand voter ID based on eligible voter registration. This needs to happen if we're ever going to trust our elections again. We stop giving our rights and liberties up willingly. The only way we lose them are to give them up. And I'm here to tell you, as a military guy that's been around the world and seen a lot of stuff, once that happens, the cost to get them back will be great, and most likely, it'll be bloody. And that's just the unfortunate truth. So here's what I say. I say take back your liberty. Take back your rights. Open up your businesses, for God's sakes. Take off the mind control mask and be with and see people again. We're humans. That's what we're supposed to do. Don't be afraid. Don't apologize, and no longer compromise your beliefs and morals. And then always remember the beginning of the Declaration of Independence. You guys can read the whole thing for yourself. I'm going to read a couple of quick lines. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And these are the exact things that our government is currently trying to take away from us, this big new world order. So I would say you guys go out and read that yourselves and figure that out. Now let's have some fun. Let's talk about the Constitution, and I won't have to go off on any tangents. You believe me, right? Okay. We'll see how that pans out. All right, give me a second. So you know me, I like to have a little bit of fun at the beginning of these things and us going in the right direction. So check this out, and we will move on from here.
So, you want to become a U.S. state? Yeah. Well, here's what you do. First, do the people who live within your boundaries actually want to join the United States? If the majority actually do, usually it's best that you have a referendum to prove it, and then you can proceed. Now, here's where it gets a bit tricky. According to Article 4, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution, Congress can admit you as a state. You'll need to petition to Congress, who would then need to create a bill called an Enabling Act and then vote on it. So you'll have to convince the majority of Congress and the president that you becoming a state is not only good for your people, but also good for the United States as a whole. Also, you'll need to make sure you have a form of government and constitution that is in compliance with the U.S. Constitution. In other words, if you're communist, it's not looking so good for you, buddy. They may not want you. For example, if you have a lot of poverty within your boundaries, they would have to pay more for social programs to assist your citizens. Or if you joining might hurt their power and influence in government, they sadly may not want you either. If a majority of both houses of Congress do vote for you to join, and if the president also approves, congratulations, you're in. If the president vetoes, then Congress override his veto with a supermajority vote, or 2/3 of both houses of Congress saying yes. Some say that a supermajority is needed anyway, since the United States doesn't seem that eager to add new states currently. So good luck, buddy. You're going to need it. Many have tried before you, and many have failed. Ever heard of the states of Franklin, Jefferson, Superior, Absaroka, or Transylvania? No, you haven't, because they're not states, but they really wanted to be. Shoot. Puerto Rico has been trying to become a state for decades, and even though the majority of its citizens want to join the United States, it doesn't appear they are going to be joining anytime soon. But I believe in you. Go for it. On a related note, maybe you want to join the European Union? That actually might be easier. If you're interested in that, check out this video from my friend Willie, who runs the channel Anubis Productions. In that video, he explains exactly how the process works. While you're over there, do yourself a favor and subscribe to his wonderful channel. Do you think Puerto Rico should become a state? Are you thinking about starting your own state? Let me know in the comments below. I'm thinking about starting my own state called New Mr. Beat. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, huh? I really love that stuff. And now I'm having troubles pausing this thing, so bear with me. But that's what we're going to talk about. That's part of the Constitution tonight, is becoming a state. So let me close that out. Let me bring up our picture again. And let's go at it. So, the Fourth Amendment. I'm sorry, I just grabbed the wrong page. 1 second. That's what happens when I get all discombobulated from the first time around. I thought I had done a great job. Oh, there we go. So, full faith. We're talking about Article 4 now. Full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state. And the Congress may by general laws prescribe the manner in which such acts, records, and proceedings shall be proved, and the effect thereof. Basically, what this is saying is that the states are equal. There's no one above the other. There's no one below the other, and that they have to keep records and have judicial proceedings, and they have to treat everything the same as every other state does when it comes to the law. And the Congress may, by general laws, prescribe the manner in which the states can act. We're going to talk about the Constitution being the supreme law of the land here in a little bit, But this is the beginning of that whole section. It says here, the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. A person charged in any state with treason, felony, or other crime who shall flee from justice and be found in another state shall, on demand of the executive authority of the state from which he fled, be delivered up to be removed to the state having jurisdiction of the crime. So this talks about two things. First of all, it says if you're a citizen, you're a citizen. You're a citizen in the United States. So a state can't say, well, we don't recognize you as a citizen because you live in Washington rather than Oregon. If you're a citizen, you're a citizen, and you're right. You have rights to the privileges and immunities of being a citizen in the United States. It also talks about, what was I going to say? Extradition, right? A person charged in any state with treason, felony, or crime. So we'll just say with some type of a crime. If that state wants to extradite that person, they can. The state where they committed the crime has to request it, but normally these days it just happens automatically. If somebody's convicted of a crime or charged with a crime in another state, they get sent back to that state. But it's written in the Constitution, so it's there. It's important. No person held to service or labor in one state under the laws thereof, escaping into another, shall in consequence of any law or regulation therein be discharged from such service or labor, but shall be delivered up on claim of the property to whom such service or labor may be due. Once again, that's an extension onto that extradition. So if somebody who was sentenced to indentured servitude or something of that nature, or in this case, way back then, it was probably slavery. They said, well, that person has to be returned back to the state from which she escaped. And that's part of the deal. So that's, once again, it relates to extradition. Section 3, this is the new states section. New states may be admitted by the Congress into this union, but no new state shall be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state, nor any state be formed by the jurisdiction of two or more states or parts of states without the consent of the legislatures of the states concerned, as well as the Congress. Basically, what it's saying is we can get new states, we can allow new states in, but we can't take bits and pieces of other states and create a new state. We can't take two states and make one state out of them. It can happen, right? But it has to happen in that state's legislature first, and then go to the Congress. But we can admit states, and so that's a good thing, and it's a bad thing, based on political ramifications of that admittance. The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States, and nothing in the Constitution shall be so construed as to prejudice and claims of the United States or any particular state. So it says that the Congress can make all the rules and regulations respecting the territory or the property belonging to the United States within states, national parks, federal buildings, things of that nature. That's what this is talking about. And so the Congress, the federal government, has control of those things. All right. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republic form of government, and shall protect each of them against invasion, and on application of the legislature or the executive, when the legislature cannot be convened, against domestic violence. So what it's saying is that the federal government is actually tasked with protecting the United States. Each state is being protected by the federal government, not one more than the other, but all. And then it also talks about, and it's talking about from invasion or insurrection. So it's saying here that if the insurrection is happening, the state legislature can convene and request federal help. And if the state legislature can't convene, the executive can request federal help. So like in the state of Washington, I wasn't going to digress this way, but just real quick, in the state of Washington, when we had this insurrection in Seattle, like what's going on in Portland and some other cities these days, if you call it an insurrection, I don't know if I would quite call it an insurrection, but it's definitely something that has to be handled. In this case, they declared themselves a separate nation, so that would be an insurrection. But the governor could have asked for help from the federal government. He chose not to. He let this continue. Bad man. Okay. Sorry, I digress. Article 5. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to the Constitution, or on the application of the legislature of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes, as part of this Constitution, when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as the one or the other mode of ratification may be proposed by the Congress, provided that no amendment which may be made prior to the year 1808 shall in any manner affect the first and fourth clauses in the 9th section of the first article, and that no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. Basically, what it's saying is we can make amendments, but we can't say a state loses senators over it. That's first and foremost. It says we can make amendments. It talks about how. An amendment is a change to the Constitution. We've done it a few times over the years. Heck, the Bill of Rights wasn't even part of the Constitution. I bet you didn't know that. Actually, most people who know the Constitution or are bothering to watch this probably did know that. So I want to look at something real quick with you guys, and we will come back to this. This will only take a second, a couple minutes actually. Let me do that before we get started.
It was springtime in 1789. Our Constitution began to march through time. It looks a lot today like it did back then, except for those amendments we added at the end.
What do you mean, added? Aren't amendments part of the Constitution?
Yes, they are the changes we added at the end.
The Constitution was changed?
Many times, especially in the beginning.
Ridiculous! What's keeping me from changing "we the people" to "we the penguins"? Oh,
Well, the founding fathers made change difficult.
good.
Even adding the Bill of Rights was hard.
What? The Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, and all of that wasn't part of the original Constitution?
Nope.
Well, why not just get it right the first time and then just say no changes?
Writing the Constitution was no magic trick. The founders knew that to move toward a more perfect union, our Constitution would have to somehow incorporate new ideas. So they gave it Article 5.
Article 5?
Article 5. Article 5. Article 5. Which conferred upon Congress and governments of state the power to amend if, after much debate, a daunting consensus of conscience coalesced from the great Northeast to the wild woolly West.
So, how exactly does the Constitution get amended?
When an idea has enough popular support, women ought to have the right to vote for enough time. Women still ought to have the right to vote. A member of Congress brings it to the floor of the House or Senate. It's then assigned a committee for debate and refinement. If it makes it out of committee, the full chamber debates. And if 2/3 of members vote for it, it passes.
Then it becomes an amendment.
Nope. Now it goes to the other chamber and repeats the process. Any differences are worked out in a conference committee, and then each chamber votes again.
Oh, brother.
Or sister.
If it passes Congress, the National Archives sends copies to each state. If 3/4 of states send back ratifications, the Archivist of the United States certifies proper ratification, and the Constitution is amended. It isn't easy to change the document that began our great experiment.
But we changed it back then, and it seems to me
And me.
we can make some changes
To grow our liberty.
Yeah, so it's not easy to change the Constitution. I guess that's the whole gist of the thing. And it's important that it's not easy. Could you imagine if every time we had a new administration or a new Congress, they decided to change the Constitution, to make amendments, to erase the previous ones and enact new ones? It would be a disaster. It would be a total disaster. So yes, it can be done, and yes, it has been done. And so we'll talk about those in the next video. We'll talk about the Bill of Rights. Okay, let's continue on. Almost done. Pretty exciting. And then we'll get on to the amendments in the next couple days. Okay, let me get to the right article here. Article 6, all debts. All debts, contract, and engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be as valid against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. Just saying that the fact that we wrote a new Constitution is not going to erase our previous debts and our previous obligations, treaties, and so on, which it shouldn't, right? We weren't making ourselves a brand new nation with the Constitution. We were making ourselves a brand new government over our nation, or should I say in conjunction with our nation. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, and bound thereby anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. This is where the supreme law of the land comes from. When you hear people talk about the Constitution as a supreme law over the state constitutions, this is the section that it's talking about. And so basically, the federal government really does have authority over the states. But remember, earlier on in the Constitution, we had states' rights and federal rights. And then we also had things that the states and the federal government couldn't do. Once again, the Constitution is here to limit government, not people. And that's what it's talking about here. The senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. But no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. Two important things to talk about here. First of all, the oath. I question whether or not a lot of our congressmen and senators, and sometimes even a lot of our military folks, which I have been one of, and I still support the military today. I still work for the military today. I question whether or not we actually know what we're swearing an oath to. How many of us have actually read this Constitution? How many of us understand the Constitution? How many of us have thought about it? And yet we're swearing an oath to uphold the Constitution, to protect our nation against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And that's what we do. Nobody explained it to me the first time I took this thing. I'm not going to tell you when because I don't want to date myself, but it was a while back. I just rose my hand because I wanted to be in the military. I didn't even think about the oath. But now I think about it constantly. And every time I retake that oath, I think about it and what it means. And I think that if you're a congressman or a senator and you take that oath, you should have to take some type of a test saying that you understand the Constitution. Anyway, I digress, and we're getting long in the tooth on the video. So let's keep going. And then last but not least, Article 7 says the ratification of the conventions of 9 states shall be sufficient for the establishment of this Constitution between the states so ratifying the same. And so what that basically says is, remember, there was 13 colonies when they put this together. What that is saying is that if 9 of them ratify this, it'll become the law of the land. And that's what happened. 9 of them ratified it rather quickly. The other 3 took a little longer. I think Rhode Island was the last one to ratify the Constitution, but they got it done. And the founding fathers knew that it wasn't perfect. The founding fathers knew that it was describing a goal. It was creating a government that is going to improve over time, and that's going to learn from mistakes and get better as we go. And that was the goal of the Constitution. And that still is the goal of the Constitution, to create a more perfect union. not to create a perfect union, because we all know that's impossible. Perfection is impossible. So we got to continue to strive for that. So that is the Constitution as written. I mean, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you go down there and you click the like button and the subscribe button. You share this with your friends. Next video we're going to talk about, or next video we're going to do, we're going to talk about the amendments. We're going to start off with the Bill of Rights. We probably won't get through the whole first 10. I think we're going to spend some pretty serious time on the first, second, fifth. There's a few amendments there where we got to spend some time on them to understand why they were written the way they were written, maybe why they're in the order they're in. That might have something to do with things. So a lot of stuff to understand here. Once again, get out your history books. Get out your history books and learn what's going on in the world today and see how it compares to what we wanted our country to be like and what we continue to work for today. All right. So that's what I got for you tonight. Like always, I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you guys do. I hope you appreciate what I'm doing. I'm trying hard. I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm not a doctorate of constitutional understanding. I'm just trying to figure it out just like you. And together we can overcome. All right. That's it for us at Truth Not Trash with Tim. And you guys have a great evening. God bless you and God bless America. Good night.